Papilledema is swelling of optic nerve head due to raised intracranial pressure. It is nearly always bilateral. All patients with papilledema should be suspected of having intracranial mass. So there are two words. One word is disc edema, the other word is papilledema. Now, papilledema is a type of disc edema, but all disc edema is not papilledema. So, definition of papilledema is very specific. It says due to raised intracranial pressure. It is swelling of optic nerve head due to raised intracranial pressure. So, this definition is important. Now, for the sake of understanding, I'll just be talking briefly about the circulation of cerebrospinal fluid. So, from the lateral ventricle, the CSF, it moves to third ventricle through foramen of Monro. From third ventricle, it goes to fourth ventricle through Sylvian aqueduct. And from fourth ventricle, it goes to subarachnoid space where it gets absorbed in the arachnoid villi or by the cerebral venous system. So this is the pathway of CSF. Now this picture shows here circulation of CSF fluid. You can see the LV, lateral ventricle. From lateral ventricle through the foramen of Monro, it goes to the third ventricle. From third ventricle, it goes to the it goes to fourth ventricle through this foramen, through the aqueduct of Sylvius. And from fourth ventricle, it goes to the subarachnoid space with by means of other foramens like foramen of Magenti and Luschka. And in the subarachnoid space, it gets absorbed by arachnoid. Causes of disc edema. Now, disc edema is one word and papilledema is another word. Papilledema is a type of disc edema, but all disc edema is not papilledema. So here it is. Here this slide deals with the causes which leads to disc edema. So one is congenital anomalous elevation, which is pseudopapilledema. Inflammations like papillitis, neuroretinitis, ocular disease like uveitis, hypotonic vein occlusion, orbital causes like tumors, Graves or bytopathy or vital cellulitis, vascular causes like anemia, uremia, anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, and increased intracranial pressure. Now, there are so many other causes also, but um, among these, it is a sixth cause, which is increased intracranial pressure, which causes papilledema. Now, etiopathogenesis of papilledema. Congenital conditions like aqueductal stenosis and craniosynostosis. Intracranial space occupying lesions like brain tumors, abscess, tuberculoma, gamma, subdural hematoma, and aneurysms. Papilledema is most frequently associated with tumors arising in the posterior fossa. Intracranial infections like meningitis and encephalitis. Intracranial hemorrhages. Obstruction of CSF absorption via arachnoid villi which have been damaged previously. Tumors of spinal cord. Idiopathic intracranial hypertension, which is also known as pseudotumor cerebri, which is usually seen in cases of young obese female. Systemic conditions like malignant hypertension, pregnancy-induced hypertension, cardiopulmonary insufficiency, blood dyscrasias, and nephritis, and diffuse cerebral edema. So these are the various causes of papilledema. So one important cause whenever we see a papilledema, whenever we see a bilateral disc edema indicating that it could be papilledema, we need to rule out intracranial space occupying lesions. Pathogenesis of papilledema. Papilledema develops as a result of stasis of axoplasm in the prelaminar region of the optic disc due to alteration in the pressure gradient across the lamina cribrosa due to increased intracranial pressure. Clinical features of raised intracranial pressure. It is usually associated with headache, nausea, projectile vomiting. There could be deterioration of consciousness. Visual symptoms could be there like transient obscurations, horizontal diplopia, or vision reduction. This slide is here to show that one very common nerve which gets involved in papilledema is the sixth nerve. Abducens nerve palsy is commonly seen in cases of papilledema. So it is just for the information. I have put up the slide. So you can see the dilated ventricles. It pushes down the brainstem. causing stretch of the abducent nerve at the petrous tip, resulting in the palsy. So sixth nerve palsy is usually associated with papillar edema. Now there are various stages of papillar edema. So they are early papillar edema or incipient papillar edema. Then there is a established papillar edema or late papillar edema. Then chronic papillar edema and atrophic papillar edema. So here we are dealing with early or incipient papillar edema. Now, in early or incipient papillar edema, you won't find much of signs and symptoms. So, symptoms are usually absent and visual acuity is normal. Pupillary reactions are normal. So, pupillary reactions you mean direct reflex and indirect consensual reflex. So, both will be normal initially. Ophthalmoscopic features of early papillar edema. Now, this is what is important, where you see some signs. So, the usual sign that we see is obscuration of the disc margin. Nasal margins are involved first, followed by the superior, inferior, and temporal. There will be blurring of peripapillary nerve fiber layer. Absence of spontaneous venous pulsation at the disc. Now, this spontaneous venous pulsation is usually appreciated in 80% of the normal individuals at the center of the disc. So, this venous pulsation will be absent. There will be mild hyperemia of the disc and splinter hemorrhages in the peripapillary region may be present. Visual fields are also normal. So these are the findings which we see in early papillar edema. Now this picture here shows you papillar edema in its early stage. If you see the nasal side of the vessels, you can see some blurring of disc margin here nasally. Otherwise, temporally, superiorly, and inferiorly, it is more or less normal. Inferiorly also there are some blurring. So nasally and inferiorly, the disc margin is blurred. Now, the disc is a bit of hyperemic. So these are the two signs that I can see here in papillar edema in its early stage. Now, signs and symptoms in cases of established papillar edema. Visual acuity will be variable. It can either be normal or it can be reduced. Optic disc shows severe hyperemia, moderate elevation with indistinct margin and absence of the physiological cup. So disc will be hyperemic, there will be elevation of the margin of the optic disc and the physiological cup gets obliterated because of the raised pressure. There will be venous engorgement, peripapillary flame-shaped hemorrhages and frequent cotton wool spots. There will be macular fan and blind spot is enlarged. So this picture here shows established case of papillar edema. So can you make out the disc margin? No, the disc margin cannot be made out because it is blurred on all sides. It is circumferentially blurred. You cannot mark out the edge of the disc. So it's a full-blown papillar edema. The disc is hyperemic. If you see the veins, they are dilated and they're tortuous, but there is a flame-shaped hemorrhage here, and but there are no cotton wool spots here in the picture. Macula is not being taken here in the picture, so macular star is also not seen. So this is a typical case of established papillar edema. Chronic papillar edema. In chronic papillar edema, the optic disc is not elevated. Cotton wool spots and hemorrhages are absent because with time they get absorbed. Visual acuity is variable and visual fields begin to constrict. Opticociliary shunt and drusen-like crystalline deposits may be present on the disc surface. So this picture shows here papillar edema in its chronic stage. There are no hemorrhages that I can see here. There are no cotton wool spots. The veins are a bit dilated, but more or less looks okay. The disc, the disc is having pallor. The margins you can see still it is not well defined here, nasally more. So this is a case of chronic stage of papillar edema. The fourth stage is atrophic stage, or it is also called a secondary optic atrophy because this optic atrophy set in because of the presence of papillar edema. So it is secondary to papillar edema. So this is called a secondary optic atrophy. So here the visual acuity is severely impaired. There will be RAPD, Marcus gun pupil. The optic disc is gray white slightly. So dirty gray white. The color of the optic disc will be dirty gray white. Slightly elevated with few crossing blood vessels and indistinct margin. So finally, the optic disc has atrophied here. There's a pallor of the disc that you can see. I'll be talking about secondary optic atrophy later. So this papilledema, it produces a type of atrophy which is called secondary optic atrophy. So this picture shows you here papilledema in its atrophic stage. Uh, Investigations. So papilledema, as I said, is due to raised intracranial pressure. So there has to be some pathology in the brain, except in few cases like idiopathic intracranial cranial hypertension, where you don't find any pathology in the brain. So so the investigation becomes important here, especially like CT scan of the brain or MRI brain, to rule out any space occupying lesion, which needs urgent attention. So the investigations that are usually done is B scan ultrasonography, for the eye, CT scan of the brain, MRI of the brain, venography, and lumbar puncture. Treatment, it depends upon the cause. Neurosurgical consultation is required. Method of reducing intracranial pressure are mannitol infusion, CSF withdrawal, sedative propofol barbiturate, control hyperventilation, decompressive craniotomy, removal of mass lesion if present, hypothermia, and steroids. Shunt technique like ventriculoperitoneal shunt, lumboperitoneal shunt, and ventriculoarterial shunt. Now we'll be talking about optic atrophy. Now, definition of optic atrophy is important again. So, optic atrophy is the degeneration of the optic nerve which occurs as a pathological endpoint of any disease that causes damage to the ganglion cells and axons in the retina to the lateral geniculate body. Now, types of optic atrophy. So, first one is primary optic atrophy or simple optic atrophy. It results from the lesions proximal to the optic disc without antecedent papilledema. Causes are multiple sclerosis, retrobulbar neuritis, Leber's and other hereditary optic atrophies, intracranial tumors pressing directly on the anterior visual pathway like pituitary tumor, traumatic avulsion of the optic nerve, toxic amblyophias like chronic retrobulbar neuritis, and tapes dorsalis. So optic disc itself is not involved, and it is happening because of some pathology behind the optic disc. So this is a case of primary optic atrophy. Now, consecutive optic atrophy. So the name itself indicates consecutive. So means as a consequence of something. So it occurs following destruction of ganglion cells secondary to degenerative or inflammatory lesions of the choroid or retina. Causes are diffuse chorioretinitis, retinal pigmentary dystrophy such as retinitis pigmentosa, pathological myopia, and occlusion of central retinal artery. Now, third one is post-neuritic optic atrophy. It develops as a sequelae to long-standing papilledema or papillitis. So here it is a consequence of the long-standing damage to the optic disc, like as it happens in the papilledema or papillitis. So primarily there's involvement of the optic disc leading to the optic atrophy. So this is a post-neuritic optic atrophy, which was not seen in case of primary optic atrophy. Now, fourth one is the glucomatous optic atrophy. Now, as the name suggests, due to glaucoma. So, there will be a history of long-standing raised intraocular pressure. And fifth one is called vascular optic atrophy or ischemic optic atrophy. It results from the conditions other than glaucoma producing disc ischemia. So, here the disc becomes ischemic. These include giant cell arteritis, severe hemorrhage, severe anemia, and quinine poisoning. So there are 5 types of optic atrophy. Primary optic atrophy, in which the optic disc is normal but there's a pathology elsewhere. Second is consecutive optic atrophy, where an optic disc gets affected due to the adjacent pathology in the retina or choroid. Third one is the post-neuritic optic atrophy, where there was a pathology in the optic disc. Glucomatous optic atrophy is due to raised intraocular pressure, and vascular optic atrophy is due to some vasculitis like giant cell arteritis or severe hemorrhage or severe anemia or quinine poisoning. Clinical features of optic atrophy. So in cases of optic atrophy, there will be loss of vision. It may be sudden or gradual onset, depending upon the cause of optic atrophy. It could be partial or total, depending upon the degree of atrophy. It is important to note that ophthalmoscopic signs cannot be correlated with the amount of vision loss. Pupil is semi-dilated and direct light reflex is very sluggish or absent. Swinging flashlight test depicts Marcus gun pupil. So the pupil will be semi-dilated because the optic nerve is involved, and there will be RAPD. Visual field loss will vary with the distribution of the fibers that have been damaged. In general, the field loss is peripheral in systemic infections, central in focal optic neuritis, and eccentric when the nerve or tracts are compressed. Ophthalmoscopic appearance of the disc will vary with the type of optic atrophy. However, ophthalmoscopic features of optic atrophy in general are pallor of the disc and decrease in the number of small blood vessels, Kasten-Baum index. The pallor is not due to atrophy of the nerve fibers but due to loss of vasculature. Ophthalmoscopic features of different types of optic atrophy. Now, this helps us to understand whether it's a primary optic atrophy and what are the causes, or it's a case of consecutive optic atrophy, so what are the possible differential diagnoses, or it's a case of post-neuritic optic atrophy and hence differential diagnosis, or glucomatous optic atrophy, or ischemic optic atrophy. So, in primary optic atrophy, you will see chalky white disc with well-defined sharp margins. Chalky white disc with sharp margin, and lamina cribrosa is clearly seen at the bottom of the physiological cup. Major retinal vessels and surrounding retina are normal. So the catch point is chalky white disc with the sharp margins of the optic disc and the visibility of the lamina cribrosa. Now coming to the consecutive optic atrophy. Here all the features that you see in cases of retinitis pigmentosa you see here. So there will be waxy pallor of the disc. The edges are not so sharply defined as in primary optic atrophy, and the retinal vessels are attenuated. So waxy pallor of the disc margin is not that well defined as you see in primary optic atrophy, and there will be attenuated vessels. Post-neuritic optic atrophy. There is a dirty white disc. Due to gliosis, its edges are blurred, the margins are blurred, and physiological cup is obliterated and lamina cribrosa is not visible. Retinal vessels are attenuated and perivascular sheathing is often present. So you see dirty white disc, margins are blurred, physiological cup is obliterated, lamina cribrosa is not visible, retinal vessels are attenuated, and there could be perivascular sheathing. Glucomatous optic atrophy. It is characterized by deep and wide cupping of the optic disc and nasal shifting of the blood vessels. Ischemic optic atrophy. There will be pallor of the optic disc associated with marked attenuation of the vessels. Now this picture shows you here types of optic atrophy. The first picture, which is A, it's given in your book, Corona. I've taken it from there only. This is showing a case of primary optic atrophy. So here you can see there's a chalky white disc with sharply defined margins. The picture is not very clear, but there will be, you can see that cribrosa lamina and other things would be normal. Here in case of picture B, the disc margin, this is a waxy pallor of the disc will be there. You can see that it's a case of retinitis pigmentosa, picture B. There will be attenuated vessels. A waxy pallor of the disc will be there, and the margins won't be so sharp as you see in case of picture A. Now in picture C, this is a case of post-neuritic optic atrophy. So here it is a dirty white color of the optic disc, and the margins are not defined. It's blurred because of the gliosis, and the blood vessels, there are some perivascular sheathing of the blood vessels you can see in the picture. Here the optic physiological cup is totally obliterated and lamina cribrosa is not visible. Now D. D is it's not a very clear picture. It's a case of vascular optic atrophy. So here, or ischemic optic atrophy. So here there is there mostly there will be a pallor of the optic disc. So this is a picture which shows the type of optic atrophy. Thank you.